Jimmy, we are glad to have you back with us on the Conservative Command Radio Show. Thanks for taking the time to be with us.
Thank you, sir. Glad to be with you.
I just looked back, I think the last time you were with us was back in December, and then so time flies. A lot has happened around the world, and I want to focus on the Middle East here, because that is you're an expert all over, but that's one you really bear down on. I asked you back at that point in time about the possible timetable for rebuilding the temple. And since today is beginning the Feast of Passover, which is a very significant feast day, I just thought it would be very appropriate to find out from you what has happened in these last few months and what is happening now as all eyes may be on the Ukraine, and it seems to be pretty quiet in the Middle East, but what's happening there? And is it really that quiet?
Well, it's not actually that quiet, and we can talk about a couple of other things, Sam. But as you said, this is the day of Passover. It's the first of 7 Jewish feasts God gave the Jewish people, Leviticus chapter 23. It's somewhat of a family gathering, because last evening at sundown, they came together for the Passover Seder. That's where they eat some of the same products or ingredients in the meal that they had back 3,500 years ago, as recorded in the book of Exodus chapter 12. And from that point on, they have been remembering this day with this Passover Seder, where they eat the ingredients from the meal, they tell the story of the Exodus, and they look forward to what's going to happen in the future. Now, the security in the state of Israel, and in particular Jerusalem, has been very high because of the fact that on the Temple Mount within the last 3 days, there's been rioting up there by the Palestinian Islamic radicals who do not want the Jews to go up on the Temple Mount. Last Thursday, the Jewish people petitioned the High Court, the Supreme Court of Israel, for an opportunity to offer a lamb in sacrifice on the Temple Mount, which of course was what was done in the times of Christ. And from every point on, after they had the tabernacle and then the temple in Jerusalem, they would offer the lambs and sacrifices before they had taken home and had the family gather and eat part of this lamb. The High Court said no, so some of the Orthodox Jews that are preparing to build that next temple went just a little bit away from the Temple Mount, and they did sacrifice a lamb, and their whole point was, hey, we're going to be doing this soon up on the Temple Mount. What we have been watching since we last talked together is the interesting development in the Israeli government, in particular in the Knesset, which is the legislative body of the Israeli government, and they have formed a committee in the Knesset for the purpose of trying to understand why the Muslims will not allow them to come up on the Temple Mount. Not only to sacrifice a lamb, and we can understand that somewhat, but the Jews are not allowed to go up there. They're not allowed to pray. They're not allowed to carry a Bible. They're not allowed to sing songs and think about the temple while they're up there. And so the Knesset has come together. They are discussing the issue. It has really provoked anger among the Arab League, among those in Jordan, among all the Palestinians in the state of Israel. And this is a part of a procedure, I believe, Sam, in preparing the Jewish people to focus on that Temple Mount and ultimately then to move ahead and do what needs to be done to build that temple, to rebuild the temple on the Temple Mount in Jerusalem, i.e., here we are at Passover. They have no opportunity to go up there and offer that sacrificial lamb. And, of course, all the rest of the 7 feasts proceed throughout the year. They're not going to be able to participate with those feast days either on the Temple Mount. So they're very eager. And some of the leaders in this group of Orthodox Jews who want to put the temple up are really excited about the way the Israeli government is getting more involved. Now, don't misunderstand me. The Israeli government is not saying we're ready to go up there and build a temple, but they are saying that the Jews should have a right to go up and at least pray and to read their Bible up there on the Temple Mount and study about that next temple upcoming. Palestinians do not want that to happen at all.
Well, I think that is very significant. To me, it's just kind of one step further in recognizing that there's an issue here that just simply is not going to go away. Let me ask you one other question here. It's interesting to me that here, timed on Passover, is the lunar eclipse, the blood moon, and even in religious circles, those who look and say there's a significance there. But even in secular press, they look and they say, this is a most interesting event. The question I have for you, since this is the first one here, and then it occurs in the fall, another fall feast, and then next Passover, and the same thing. It's most unusual. Does this event, as it's happening, have much significance with folks in Israel, or do they look at this with any kind of significance?
They do not, and in fact, the blood moon. And I woke up, by the way, about 2:30 this morning. I was in Pennsylvania, and I looked out, tried to see if the blood moon was out there. The cloud cover was so bad, but I did go on my computer and watch the live feed from one of the observatories of the moon and the eclipse that took place. But it did not show in Israel. There is really no interest in Israel. You've got to remember the blood moon is only talked about in 3 different places in the Bible. We're talking about Joel 2, Acts 2, and Revelation chapter 6, verse 12. There the blood moon is talked about that will come about, and this will be more of a supernatural act, not just an act of nature. The NASA organization could have told you the exact moment the blood moon would happen, et cetera, et cetera. Well, friends, if indeed you can be that precise, the moment, the second, the day, and everything else, that's not going to help you think that this is God in a supernatural way giving a sign. In Joel chapter 2, for example, that blood moon is talked about to happen during what they refer to as the tribulation period. In Acts chapter 2, Peter just refers back to Joel chapter 2, and Revelation 6:12 is going to be fulfilled in the tribulation period. So for those who are looking for some type of significant prophetic event as it relates to the blood moons, there is nothing, not only in Israel, but worldwide, because the rapture has nothing to do with the Jewish feast. It's only for Christians, and that happened before that tribulation period, and we're not in the tribulation. I know that because you and I are still here, and the rapture hadn't happened. But otherwise, let's go into the situation as far as the peace treaty. That is very concerning right now.
Okay, well, let's go there now, because obviously, if anybody's been watching and listening, you know that this has been a major effort of the Obama administration and John Kerry. I mean, they've put this on a very, very top priority, yet it has appeared to me to at least slipped off the table or about to slip off the table, and I'm sure there's got to be some significant ramifications. Can you tell us what is the circumstance there relative to the treaty? Are the folks in Israel, have they completely written it off? What's happening on that?
Well, you know, the whole situation, we do not understand from the Israeli perspective why the United States would be pushing this resolution of the Israeli-Palestinian conflict. For the last 5 presidents, they've not been able to do anything with it. And then Obama assigns Kerry, the Secretary of State, to deal with it. He's been there 18 times. He's not been able to get it off the table. In fact, it's now dead in the water. One of the reasons is the United States forced Israel to do some Palestinian prisoner releases, and all of these prisoners had Israeli blood on their hand. Well, they did 3 of them, the 4th one coming up. And, you know, the Palestinians were to reciprocate in some way. They've not done anything, made no concessions at all. So Prime Minister Netanyahu said, no, we're not doing another prisoner release. I said that from principle, but he also said it from a political perspective because his coalition, his government would have fallen had they done that prisoner release. And the Israelis are very upset to the fact that the Palestinians are doing nothing. They're forcing Israel to do everything. And, of course, when you are going to sit and negotiate at a table coexistent, there should be equal debate at the table. You may not come to the same that you would like it to, but you at least have equal debate. Looks like it's dead in the water right now. Every Israeli, 9 out of 10, let me say it that way, 9 out of 10 Israelis say there's not going to be a resolution to this Palestinian conflict right now. Hey, and they're worried about some other things. The Iranians are continuing to enrich uranium, and they are still saying they're going to wipe Israel off the face of the earth, even though they have a so-called moderate president. Rouhani is not a moderate. He is one of those wild men with a smile on his face. At the northern border, you've got Lebanon with Hezbollah. You've got to the east, then you have Syria with all of their troops. They're massed at the border with Israel. Israeli Defense Force on a high alert in the north. They're concerned about what is taking place as it relates to Bashar Assad making a statement, we're going to take the Golden Heights back. Hezbollah saying, we're going to attack all of Israel. You've got the Hamas in the Gaza Strip making a statement to President of the Palestinian Authority, Mahmoud Abbas. Let's now go with armed struggle against the Jews since they will not go to a peace agreement with us. Hello, whatever that means. You will not go to a peace agreement with us, so let's go for the armed struggle. Who in the world wants to be talking about a coexistence, a peace agreement between the Israelis and the Palestinians? So the Israelis throw their hands up and say, look, we're not going to deal with it anymore unless the Palestinians come back to the table and are serious peace partners.
Well, see, that's interesting. Now, is the circumstance in Lebanon, with all of the refugees having gone out of Syria, as I've read, whatever the number is, it's hundreds of thousands at least, that have gone into Lebanon. Lebanon is putting pressure on their government, perhaps destabilizing it. Is that another part of the equation that just makes that whole area totally unstable?
Well, the Lebanese government has been very unstable for a long time because of what is happening in southern Lebanon. That's Hezbollah. Hezbollah is involved in some of the governmental operations in Lebanon. They basically are an entity unto themselves. They were sent there in 1982 by the then Ayatollah Khomeini out of Iran. They're the surrogate terrorist group. They have enough rocket power, more so than they did in 2006 when there was a skirmish between Israel and Hezbollah out of southern Lebanon. So these refugees coming out of Syria not only have helped enhance and intensify the instability there of the Lebanese government, but it has encouraged Hezbollah. Remember, Hezbollah has been fighting alongside Bashar Assad's group, and we don't know if there have been any chemical weapons of mass destruction that have been transferred. Mm-hmm. We've had reports that was a possibility from Syria over to Hezbollah in southern Lebanon. We do know a lot of weaponry was passed over to Hezbollah, and that's a hot spot. There's the hot spot you need to be looking at. The United States need to be dealing with it, not trying to get the Israelis and the Palestinians to come to a peace agreement.
Jim, we've got just about a 1 minute left. I do want to get your opinion on this, though. I mean, Benjamin Netanyahu and others really almost drew a line in the sand relative to Iran and their procurement of nuclear weapons, and clearly they have continued unabated. The clock has got to be running out where they're going to have to draw the line and actually do something. There is Israel prepared in any time soon to go after Iran, even alone, assuming that the United States is not going to be there for them?
Sam, they are prepared. They're ready to go it alone. Would it be within the next week? I cannot tell you that. The first two I can be absolute on. I can tell you this, though. President Rouhani of Iran said today, we're going to continue to enhance this uranium to develop a nuclear weapon of mass destruction. The Ayatollah Ali Khomeini, who is the supreme leader of Iran, has said the exact same thing. Israel is watching the clock tick away. They're meeting over there in Vienna. They're coming to no conclusions. That's just a waste of time. But the Israeli Defense Force is ready to go, whether the United States joins them or not. By the way, the chief of staff of the chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff of the United States military, General Dempsey, was just there to assure Israelis that indeed the United States would stand with them. I don't know if that's the truth or not.
Well, I don't know either. We'll have to find out. But, Jim, we have to run right now. Give us, our listeners right now, where they can go to follow you, your writings, and what you're speaking about, please.
You can go to my website, prophecytoday.com. We have a brand new documentary on the revival of the Roman Empire and how religion plays a role. Rome Rising, Religion and Rulers. That's at www.prophecytoday.com.